Hey there, this is a Luxs counter video intended to fill you in on everything you need to know to deal with Luxs when she's on the opposite team. If there's a champion you find yourself struggling with in your solo queue games and you're tired of banning it, then feel free to drop a comment and let us know. If you're interested in learning more about Luxs or any other champion, then head on over to the Mobalytics website where you can see everything you need to know, including builds, combos, pro builds, tips, and more. So first off, what does Luxs do? Luxs is a long-range mage who is capable of dealing a large amount of AoE damage to opponents out of reach. She excels at long-range harass, poking while sieging, as well as pinning down up to 2 of her opponents, allowing her to burst them or to allow allies to close in. Luxs offers plenty of utility, providing shields to both herself and allies, and can also be played in a more supportive role even when behind. Let's hone in on Luxs' strengths. She has incredible wave clear and long-range snipe potential, especially post level 6 with her ultimate. She has one of the longest range catch abilities in the game, even surpassing abilities like Thresh's Death Sentence, with the added bonus of being able to affect an additional target. Luxs brings a sizable amount of utility, with the multiple target CC for light binding to lock down enemies, as well as one of the only non-ultimate AoE shields in the game on her W. Now let's take a look at Luxs' weaknesses. Firstly, she relies on the use of skill shots, which can be easily avoided. She has no innate forms of escape, relying on flash, and she has a fair amount of bad matchups, especially those with low cooldown gap closers. We're going to dive in specifically how to counter Luxs at different points of the game, but first is an overview of the major tips that we'll be breaking down further in this video. First, keep track of her position. Luxs relies on deleting you from a distance even from the fog of war, so watch out for her catching you rotating. Dodge your Q. It may seem obvious, but Luxs' burst relies on her target being unable to move. Dodging her Q, her only form of crowd control, will lessen the blow of a full combo. Punish her cooldowns. Luxs' abilities are potent, but with them all being skill shots and having relatively long cooldowns at early levels, she leaves herself wide open, especially if she has no flash. Use this window to punish her. Be careful when she roams. As mentioned earlier, Luxs has incredible wave clear, especially with her ultimate allowing her to push and roam to influence other lanes. Be wary of her passive. Luxs is able to harass and poke extremely well in lane because of her illumination passive. If she hits you with an ability, step back and try to prevent her from auto-attacking. If you're going into a game against a Luxs, there's a solid basis to remember and will help you be successful. It's always good to think about when a champion is strongest or weakest. Luxs is strongest in mid-game, where she has completed her first few items and is looking to push lanes and look for opportunities to roam. Luxs is weakest in the early game, where she is vulnerable to being camped due to the fact that she has no escape without her flash. Now let's take a look at Luxs' early game. So dealing with Luxs in the laning phase, the primary way of harassment is to hit you with one of her abilities followed by an auto attack, proccing her illumination passive and dealing a sizable amount of damage. If you are hit by an ability, keep your distance as you will try to follow up. Once Luxs hits 6, look toward the river to scout out possible roams, as she may look to snipe with her lanes with a large range of her ultimate. Don't underestimate her shields early game. Luxs may seem like a tasty target, but she has a lot of tools to keep herself alive. Remember that when ganking, and don't get too overconfident going for something like a tower dive. Luxs has good wave clear, so be aware she'll try to push you to tower and harass you down while you're trying to farm. Look to stay away from your minions, as Luxs can harass you while farming the minion wave. Moving on to Luxs' mid game. In the mid game, she'll be looking to make picks and catch people out. Try to spam the map with wards and always be conscious that she may be lurking nearby waiting for the opportunity to snipe you down. Luxs is exceptionally good at wave clear in the mid game and will look to permanently push lanes and start sieging with her allies. Try to predict this and take her out before she can start sieging, as this is one of the things that she does best. Luxs will have some damage at this point, and taking the full front of her damage will be devastating. However, she is still extremely squishy. Look to chase her down as soon as she misses a Q, as she will have no answer to this, especially without flash. Finally, onto the late game. Luxs will play a very similar style to a mid game, just with some more damage and likely a defensive item or two. Try to be aware of her Zhonya's cooldown and don't get baited in by it. Luxs' ultimate can be reduced to a ridiculously low cooldown in the late game, especially with things like Ultimate Hunter and Cloud Soul. Remember that even if she's just used her ultimate, it could be back up in less than 30 seconds, so always respect it. Finally, be sure not to underestimate her utility. Her AoE shield is amazingly impactful in teamfight scenarios, and be aware that she will use this ability on cooldown. Alongside the slow from her E and the root from her Q, she offers a lot more in teamfights than just damage. Try to force her out of fights early, or ideally focus and take her out before the fight starts. Let's look at some itemization choices against Luxs. First off, Zhonya's Hourglass or Stopwatch. This is always an amazing item, but especially so against Luxs. While being caught by a Q can lead to devastating consequences, but because it's not actually a stun, you can use Zhonya's or Stopwatch during it. Timing it to avoid her ultimate, which is a main form of AoE burst, will be vital in putting Luxs in the back foot in skirmishes and full team fights. Banshee's Veil or Edge of Night. This is an extremely useful effect, as it provides a spell shield which can block out Luxs' damage, and it is especially useful for blocking her Q so she can't follow up with a combo. Quicksilver Sash. As mentioned, Luxs relies on catching you out and bursting you down. With a Quicksilver Sash, you are able to cleanse the route, which will allow you to dodge the follow-up. Lock off the Iron Slurry. This is a useful item for supports and allows an AoE shield which can mitigate the large AoE damage that Luxs can put out, and even just keeping your teammate alive during one of her burst combos. Serpent's Fang. This is a great pick against Luxs as she has an AoE shield that can be used frequently and often for a whole team. Take this to remove those shields and take her out and her allies. That wraps everything up for our Luxs counter video. If you enjoyed this video, then you can find more counter videos on our website or in the playlist link below, and be sure to subscribe to be alerted for when we cover a new champion. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again.